Welcome, everybody, to the Longmont Area Democrats City Council Candidate Forum. Here's the board members. We're all here and accounted for. All of the candidates are here. You'll notice that in the participants panel, you'll see the candidate's name, and next to their name is the office they're running for. Welcome to everybody. Longmont Area Democrats does not endorse any candidate in nonpartisan races, such as this city council election, nor do we endorse any Democratic candidate in any primary phase of any election. We are all about voter education, however, and between the Chamber Forum, the League of Women Voters Forum, Sustainable Resilient Longmont's Forum, and ours this evening, voters can get a wide array of questions for the candidates. We think listening to where candidates stand on the issues is the best form of voter education. So you were muted upon entry. I think, we switched to a webinar just in the last couple hours. So you'll see that you can chat with panelists. So just make sure your participants panel is open by clicking the participants icon. Just some election basics. Ballots are mailed to voters this Friday, October 8th. So many of you will receive your ballot Monday or Saturday or in the days after. We recommend that you sign up for Ballot Track at bouldercountyvotes.org. That's the Boulder County elections website. And turn in your ballot by Tuesday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. And the last recommended day to mail your ballot is October 25th, but there are lots of vote centers all over Boulder County. And the ballot basics are that you've got three areas on your ballot this year. There are 3 statewide ballot measures: Amendment 78, Prop 119, Prop 120. There are 4 Longmont City Council seats that are up: the mayor, 2 at-large seats where we have 1 incumbent running, and 1 Ward 2, the incumbent who is unchallenged. And then we have 3 St. Vrain Valley School District seats in District B, District D, and District F. And I want to remind everybody that all the residents of a school district vote for all the seats. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. You can find your sample ballot for Boulder County at that Boulder County, I'll go back to it, the bouldercountyvotes.org website. Okay. In all the years that Mary Ann Grimm has been teaching history and women and gender studies at Front Range Community College, we are certain she's inspired hundreds, if not thousands, of students with her passion for history. It's why we're so happy that she is once again moderating this most informative event for all of you tonight. So, Mary Ann, you want to take it away?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back to do this. I really enjoy it. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's debate, and I just want to say this as a preface to the entire evening. I live in Boulder. I have no bias, so I'm here to support all of you. So I am going to lay out the ground rules for the evening. And some of you I know from previous debates. Really good to see some familiar faces. So here are the ground rules. Let's play nice. That's ground rule number 1. But here, seriously, we're going to start with opening remarks tonight. And each of you will have 1.5 minutes to speak. Our timekeeper, Ingrid, if you want to give a hi, Ingrid, will give you a heads up at 30 seconds remaining with a yellow sign and by voice. She will hold up a red stop sign and advise you to end your sentence if you are still talking when time is up. I repeat, we will use muting if we have to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. Next will be questions for 7 council candidates and different questions for the 3 mayoral candidates, alternating back and forth tonight between the mayoral candidates and the city council candidates through about 5 questions each if we have time. You will have 1 minute to answer these questions. The same timekeeping will apply, verbal and visual, 30-second warning, and ending 30 seconds later. Please answer our questions by describing what you would do if you get elected. As we go through the questions, we'll rotate who speaks first, and we'll remind you of the time allowed for the answers. We'll start alphabetically by your last name tonight within the groups of mayoral and city council candidates. The first name will be moved to the last for the next question, and so on. I'll provide reminders of who starts. Next, if time permits, this is the exciting part of the evening. It's the Longmont Dems lightning round. We are going to have yes/no questions for all of you. And you get to have a yes/no response and a 30-second to explain your answer. We'll end the evening with rebuttal and/or your closing remarks, allowing all of you to speak for a minute and a half. As we go along, I'll remind you of the time allowed for speaking and answering questions. Before we get into the questions, though, I'm going to hand it over to Ingrid. She's going to give us a short demonstration, which I think she just did, on how she's going to handle the timekeeping this evening. Ingrid?
30 seconds, and then I'll probably say stop. Please finish your thought.
Great. Thanks, Ingrid. All right, you all, let's get started. We're going to begin with your opening remarks, and the three mayoral candidates will go first. You will get 1.5 minutes to speak, and we're going to start with Gregory Harris, who's running for mayor, then Joan Peck, and Tim Waters. Gregory, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you very much. Hello and good evening. My name is Greg Harris, and I've lived in Longmont for 50 years. I'm tired of watching things be done the same old way. It's time for a change. I'm running for mayor to improve the lives of the people of Longmont. We all know Longmont will grow. Businesses want to come here. To meet this need, we must support the construction of middle-class apartments and housing. I oppose any increase in taxes, water rates, connection fees, tap fees, and all excessive policies, codes, regulations, and fees attached to new construction, since they would add to the cost of the consumer. I oppose all efforts to limit the residential growth. We must substantially increase the number of homes built in Longmont. Without addressing our infrastructure or our current growth is unsustainable. If we increase our vehicle emissions, especially during commuting hours. Longmont has many roads that go north and south, but east and west, we only have Highway 66 and 119. Why isn't there more
30
progress
seconds.
in funding the work needed on Highway 66? It was never brought in. As mayor, I will lead the city council and the city agencies into expediting project development. As one of my first actions, I will require a quarterly progress report from the city manager and agencies responsible for the project approval. I support.
We didn't get that last part.
Yeah.
The mute just went off.
Yeah.
I
I'm
support
sorry, Greg.
increasing the budget and public safety and oppose any effort to defund the police. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Joan.
Hi, I'm Joan Peck. I think I know most of you that I see here on these tiny little screens. I've been on city council for 6 years. And the reason that I actually wanted to run for council is that we are right now in an unprecedented time to be able to get our rail from, not just from RTD, but from Amtrak and from Front Range Passenger Rail. It's really important. I've been working on this for 7 years. I know all of the people who are the players, both political and board members. The one in all of these transportation organizations that really make the difference and talk for their city are the mayors. The mayors and commissioners are a consortium, the Metro Mayors Caucus, NADA, and Commuting Solutions. That's not the only reason, but I don't think we should change the path on that right now because it's a high learning curve.
30 seconds.
It's been a long time. I'm also interested and believe that we should not look when we are growing our city as projects in silos. We have to connect everything. When we're talking about building our transit station, which RTD just gave us $17 million to do, we have to address homelessness because we do not want them sleeping in our transit station. We do not want them sleeping in our performing arts station, and we need to get on top of everything. Thank you, Ingrid. Yep.
Thank you, Jen. And Tim.
Mary Ann, pardon me,
Yes.
it's Amy. Could we ask the candidates to please manage your muting, and if you're not speaking, to please put yourselves on mute? Thank you.
Sure, you all got that. All right. Tim, welcome.
Thanks to Longmont area Democrats for sponsoring and hosting this session, and Professor Grimm for volunteering your time as our moderator tonight. I'm Councilman Tim Waters. In 2018, I was elected to serve on City Council representing Ward 1, which is Longmont's east side. I'm now running for mayor for 3 reasons. The first is the unfinished business that this council has to do on goals, vision statements and goals that we adopted a couple of years ago. And these goals include these priorities: that we become a community where children are most fortunate to be born and raised, where people have access to food and shelter, and where everyone feels like they belong, and that our main street from Pike Road to Highway 66 and the river corridor from the sugar mill to the fairgrounds is developed as a vibrant economic, residential, cultural, and entertainment epicenter while protecting our natural environment. Number 2, if there was ever a time when municipalities need seasoned, tested leadership,
30
it's now.
seconds.
And I believe I bring the kind of leadership Longmont's going to need. And number 3, we need a community-wide conversation on the kind of city we want to become as Longmont continues evolving. If we truly aspire to be a healthy, vibrant community of the 21st century, then we need to understand what will be required of us and how we work together to realize our aspirations. The next mayor will play a critical role in moving that conversation forward. Happy to be here tonight. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Tim.
Perfect.
Great. So I want to introduce the city council candidates, and then you will have your time, your minute and a half. So we have Diane Christ, and you will be going first tonight. This is in alphabetical order, please remember. Jeremy DeJuan Johnson, Marsha Martin, Sean McCoy, Aaron Rodriguez, Paulus Salamatian, and Shakita Yarbrough. So Diane, would you like to tell us why you're running?
Thank you, Mary Ann. And thank you, Longmont area Democrats. My name is Diane Christ. I've lived in Longmont for 32 years. I'm married, and we raised our 4 children in Longmont. I'm a business growth professional, and I work with local businesses to help them grow their businesses. And sometimes that even means just becoming profitable to begin with, but to realize their greatest aspirations for their business. I am a proponent of the Hyperloop. I would like to see Longmont get on board with the Hyperloop. It is actually a 5th mode of transportation. It would not replace any of the transportation modes that we already have. But it is a mass transit system that would go along the Front Range and out I-70 from DIA. The goal is to move about 30,000 people an hour, which CDOT thinks is important going forward. I can tell you more about this in our conversation today. And in regards to budget, I feel strongly that we should collect money before we spend it, and that we can get our village feel back in Longmont with some hometown health mindfulness. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Jeremy.
Thanks, Mary Ann, and thanks to the Longmont area Democrats for having us tonight. I am Jeremy Johnson. I've been living in Longmont for almost 10 years, decorated veteran of the United States Army. I love being a part of the great city of Longmont. I'm a devoted husband and father. At your next city council, I will be a representative for all the people, not a champion of a special interest group or a narrow perspective. I am honest, balanced, committed, motivated for change in the entire city. I'm experienced. I am electable. Recently been endorsed by the Longmont Area Realtors Association. We need to bring small businesses back home. We need to support them, make them feel that we actually need them for Longmont to survive. I want to think about extending childcare for the working families. We need to bring more opportunities for people to work in Longmont so they have places for their kids to grow in this community. Also, powering our youth where they can continue education outside of the normal high school or normal elementary education, giving them different options to thrive inside the city of Longmont. Also, thanks a lot, and I look forward to the conversations tonight.
Thanks, Jeremy. And we'll move to Marcia.
Hello, everyone, and thanks to everyone who put this event together. We always appreciate a chance to get to speak to the public. I am set for a second term on the Longmont City Council because I have a lot of unfinished business. And I think that it's important to talk about the most important things facing Longmont. There are problems that are critical and there are problems that are urgent. Longmont's most critical problem is doing what it must in the transition to renewable energy and in the world's efforts to abate climate change and reverse the process. These last 2 summers, we have seen the consequences of not doing that. So that is our most critical challenge today. Our most urgent challenge is balancing our housing inventory and ending, or at least mitigating as much as we can, homelessness and the burden that the housing shortage places on our less fortunate people. That involves paying a lot of attention to using the space that we have left, because unlike what others have said, we don't have unlimited space and we have to use what we have left right.
Thank you, Marcia. Sean. You're muted, Sean.
Thank you, Longmont Area Democrats, for hosting this tonight. I'm Sean McCoy. I've lived in Longmont for 56 years. In 1983, I had just turned 18 and turned to my dad, Tom McCoy, who was a registered Republican, and said, you know, you and Mom are Republicans, but you never raised us that way. And I'm going down to register to vote, and I'm going to register as a Democrat. And I said to him, do you want to join me? And he did. And he and I have been Democrats in Boulder County for 38 years. And I'm dedicated to this community. I believe in climate change, believe in helping the homeless. I believe in lowering our carbon footprint, all things that citizens should be doing and should be supporting. I've been a member of the Longmont Area Democrats for a decade off and on. I've actively campaigned for Democrats since Jimmy Carter. I've walked neighborhoods doing literature drops, door knockings. I've made thousands of get out the vote phone calls, donated thousands of dollars to Democratic candidates and causes at all levels, collected signatures, caucused, gone as a delegate several times to the county assembly and to the state convention, been a precinct captain, lobbied the state house representatives and senators, and as a former Longmont City Council member, lobbied our federal representative. I teach U.S. government, and I'm dedicated to the democratic process. Even though this is a nonpartisan race, I would hold true to my values. I'm running for Longmont City Council because I believe in I can be a positive force for good in the community that I love. I believe we need to address several important issues in our city.
Time, please finish your thought.
In our city, and hope that you can support me. Please vote for me, Sean McCoy.
Thanks, Sean. Aaron. We just lost Aaron. Your video went down. There you go. There you are.
Very good. Hey, you can hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. I'm Aaron Rodriguez. I have been very blessed to be your council member on City Council for the last 4 years, as well as your mayor pro tem for the last 2. As a fellow native of Longmont, it is again my, blessing to represent you. I believe that there's a certain number of concepts that the city of Longmont truly is concerned about. One of those being affordable versus attainable housing. Affordable housing is generally, as I will say, subsidized housing. Attainable housing is market rate housing. What I will say is that we have done a great deal of work on the city council for affordable housing, subsidized housing, through the Longmont Housing Authority and other various endeavors that the city council has chosen to take on. So I'd also like to talk about that infrastructure as well as community. And I believe that I will demonstrate through this forum that I am educated and understand the different ideas that are facing the city of Longmont. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Talis.
Hi, and thank you, Professor Graham, for hosting this and being the moderator. And thank you, Longmont Area Democrats, for inviting all the candidates. This is a very important exercise in democracy, so kudos to everyone. I'm Talis Salmatine, and I'm running for City Council at large. I've been in business and entrepreneurship for over 15 years. I've been involved with many different ventures, including an IoT sensor company I founded with a nationally renowned orthopedic surgeon who happened to do 3 of my 4 knee surgeries. I helped a friend of mine from the World Bank start a machine learning company. I led an aerospace company that was one of the 10 teams selected nationally by NASA in 2019 to present at the Space Symposium. Additionally, I earned an MBA. I taught business at CU Boulder. I have a published book right up there. And some of you may have recognized me in this background as the set of the Savvy Entrepreneur. Since COVID, I've been volunteering to help businesses through Energize Colorado. I've done more to promote business and economic growth than any of my opponents. So please help me continue my advocacy for small and local businesses like me for City Council.
Thanks, Talis. And Chiquita.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. We really appreciate it. My name is Chiquita Yarbrough, and I'm running for City Council at large so that I can be a positive change, positive impact on my community, because I believe that representation matters. I'm a single mom of 4. I have lived here for almost 10 years in the city of Longmont, worked in various jobs in Boulder County as well as Longmont, have often worked 2 jobs while living here. I believe that everyone has a voice and their voices deserve to be heard, and their voices matter in our community. I believe that affordable and attainable housing is important and crucial in our community, and we need improved transportation that works. And I also believe in preserving our climate and environmental equity, and also preparing our youth for the future through mentoring and leadership opportunities. Thank you for the opportunity.
Chiquita, I'm sorry, I messed up. So you have a little more time if you want to talk. If you're finished,
Ingrid, you don't mess me up now.
I did mess up.
That's okay. I'm just kidding. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiquita. I just want to tell all the candidates, if you, the virtual backgrounds don't really work because they'll slow things down. So either turn your camera off if you need to, no problem. That's what I tell my students. And hopefully you can just leave it on all evening. We are going to dive right in now. For the mayoral candidates, this is your first question, and it'll be in this order: Joan, Tim, and then Gregory. So, Joan, what are your budget priorities for the city? What experience do you have managing large budgets? Unmute yourself.
Okay, that's a very good question. I did run my own childcare business, but it wasn't that large of a budget. To be honest, I don't have, other than with the city, any experience in running large budgets. That hasn't been my education, and it hasn't been my profession. So is the question also...
what are your budget priorities?
There you go. Thank you. My budget priorities, as I made a motion last night, or it was amended by the mayor, to put $300,000 into mental health, because I think mental health is an area that we need to go on many levels, not just with addiction, with unhoused people, with people who are just suffering from depression and fall through the cracks. So I want to see that expanded. What that looks like right now, I don't know. It's going to be a wider conversation, both with staff and some of the service providers. The other one is affordable housing.
Time, please.
Thank you, Joan. Perfect. Thank you. Tim, do you need the question repeated? Are you
No, I don't think so. I think
ready?
I'm good. Yep.
All right.
I've had considerable experience with building budgets, not only in the last few years on city council as we've given the role we play in that, but I served as 7 years of a school district, the Greeley Evans School District. I've built multi-million-dollar budgets as a CEO. I ran an organization for 20 years that did work internationally. We built budgets every year. So I've got fingerprints on a lot of budgets through a lot of different processes. For me, as we went into this budgeting process and as we wrapped it up last night,
30 seconds.
I think what we are doing, the $78 million we're spending on infrastructure in 2022, the variety of projects that money is going to fund in the 237 million, almost $250 million over the next 5 years. Number one. Number two, what we do with housing and human services. For the first time in 2022, we will actually budget 3% of the general fund to get back into the community to support nonprofits and priorities, human service priorities. Early child.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. And Gregory, you're up next.
Thank you very much. Well, I have over 35 years of construction experience. So I've done a lot of work working with budgets, subcontractors, different kinds of things like that. We also have a city manager as well as the support staff. But I want to provide leadership to take care of bringing these projects into completion and stuff. We have many projects in development right now, like attainable housing. I want to bring that into completion. You know, the other guys have been on the city council for 4 years or more, and they still haven't brought attainable housing into Longmont. I can do that with providing the leadership if you vote for Harris for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. All right, city council candidates, you are up next. It will be in this order. Jeremy will go first, followed by Marsha, Sean, Aaron, Talis, Shakita, and Diane. You move to the end of the rotation because of the alphabetical order. So this question is for you all. What would you change to improve Longmont's housing balance of market rate, affordable, workforce attainable, subsidized, rental, and mobile homes? And Jeremy, you're up first.
Thanks. Like everybody keeps mentioning, the affordable, attainable homes, we have to be able to switch and change the mindset of bringing so much affordable. The workforce and the new graduated families, it's hard to attract them to Longmont when the housing ceiling is so high. When it comes to the mobile homes, the mobile home areas that we already have here in Longmont, I mean, those people deserve to continue to thrive in the community just like everyone else. So continue investing in those neighborhoods is a must.
30 seconds. Go ahead.
When we look at the multifamily homes, being able to strategically place those in the community so they're thriving as well has to be important.
Thanks, Jeremy. Marsha.
Thank you. First, in terms of budgeting experience, I worked in a leadership position in a $2 billion company and managed budget and oversaw the job of bringing projects that were worth $10 to $20 million myself on budget and on time. That doesn't always happen, but I understand where things can go wrong. And I want to say that there is such a thing as organizational maturity. And I believe that the city of Longmont needs to improve its organizational maturity. To put together a right housing mix, I've begun most of the things that need to be done by putting a premium on attainable housing and incentivizing builders to build that and not single family luxury homes.
Thank you, Marsha. Aaron. I'm sorry, Sean. Sean, you're up next. My apologies.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Yesterday in the newspaper, Richard Juday, Dr. Juday, wrote a little bit about, this type of question. And he pointed out is what is enough? I mean, if 12% isn't enough for inclusionary housing and workforce obtainable or affordable housing, whatever you want to call it, then what is enough? And I think that it's somewhat of a situation where, yeah, we need to have some tiny houses. That's and that sort of thing. We need to have focused development in regards to areas like Martin Street to Main Street, where we are looking at that level of housing, or those sort of purchasable houses that are units that people can afford, and focus on those types of things, because that's where our growth is going to be needed, and that's where we need to focus on right now.
Thank you, Sean. Aaron.
Thank you very much. First, start with City Council's duty, and that is to address codes and our municipal ordinances. And so we need to take a very good hard look at not just commercial design standards, but we need to take a look at residential design standards as well. As far as capital A affordable housing goes, subsidized housing, we need to also expand the mission of the Longmont Housing Authority to not just be senior housing, but also do family housing.
30 seconds.
Yes, thank you. Single person housing, single adult housing, as well as permanent supportive housing as well. And then we need to make a baseline for the attainable workforce housing to know exactly what our city deficit is. And as such, I think there's a lot of work to do, and we're on the right path.
Thanks, Aaron. Talis.
Great question, and thank you. I'm going to quickly address the budget thing because I'm a finance guy and I can't help it. When I was in my MBA program, my first internship was at my uncle's oil company, where I reviewed financial cash flows of $1 billion company. So for over a decade, I've been working in the financial industry, helping companies as a fractional CFO. So I have a very strong background in finance, to say the least. And I even have a class on YouTube that I help people learn the basics of finance. On the topic of housing, I'm a big fan of workforce attainable housing. It's the best way to support our local businesses. I think that ways we can improve the stock of workforce attainable housing is infill development, looking at innovative ways to build new houses through 3D printing and other innovative methods. And I think that is absolutely a travesty that the Envision Longmont document that many of the current city council members worked on doesn't mention attainable housing once throughout the whole document. So I think that attainable housing is totally being left behind.
Please finish.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Well, first of all, as a person who, like I said, worked 2 jobs before, I think we need to make sure that people, the working force people that live here, are making livable wages. A diverse community is very important. That includes socioeconomic diversity as well. And different types of housing is required. Mixed community neighborhoods, right? Mixed housing would help as well. And we also want diverse neighborhoods. It's so important with all of these interspersed,
30
right?
seconds.
And so then with Longmont Housing Authority, create programs that help people to get from renting to owning their own homes. Help them with these programs, create programs with the Housing Authority where people can learn how to afford a home. And we need to do more of that. That's what I would implement.
Thank you, Shakita. And Diane.
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, when it comes to affordable housing, the Hyperloop can help here in that it will make more locations available for commuters. They say small towns will be 20 minutes away from Longmont. That does make more housing available because, as Marcia pointed out, there is a limited amount of land here, and land use is kind of at a premium. Another thing that we need to consider is, should the government provide housing, or is it really more the role of government to make sure that our standard of living allows us to live in the town in which we work and choose to live? So I think really it has more to do with property taxes and small business profitability in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. All right, the next question goes to our 3 mayoral candidates, and this time Tim will be up first, followed by Gregory, and then Joan. What actions and partnerships would you propose for bringing commuter rail to Longmont and for mitigating the commuter traffic through Longmont?
On the first part of that question, the only way we're going to successfully bring commuter rail to Longmont is if there's a coalesced effort among the municipalities in Boulder County, all the L towns, along with the city of Boulder. The elected officials in the municipalities are going to have to come together. I think mayors will be instrumental to the coming together to design the kind of strategy that sends a clear signal to the board of directors of RTD that we're going to be relentless, and then with them and with the private sector, getting ready to take advantage of whatever's going to come out of the infrastructure. There's several possibilities in Congress. In terms of, so anyway, getting ready with the partnerships with investors to make certain that we are first in line when that money's available with the RTD board. Beyond that, in terms of moving traffic around.
Finish.
Thank you, Tim. Gregory.
Thank you. That's a great question. If you look at it, that'll be a long way down the line. Commuter rail is a pie in the sky. We need attainable housing. We need to fix Highway 66. That by widening that takes care of air pollution and so many other things, as well as congestion, traffic moving. We need less commuting for our workforce and our citizens, and that creates less pollution, which brings us back to, everybody's concern on carbon and everything like that. I think if we need to focus on what's going on here now in Longmont, instead of looking down 10 years down the line, capitalism will help us with that. And if we let businesses take over, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Gregory, I cut you off. My apologies.
Oh, that's becoming a habit with you, but I like,
my God.
That's okay. That's right. But like I said, if we take care of the traffic problem, traffic lights in the city, we can get moving and stuff. I mean, if we bring buses in without fixing the lights, it's just going to be more congestion. So there's many things we could address before that, which is now, let's have actions, not words. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gregory. My apologies.
Yeah, hang in there with us, guys. We don't do this for a living.
And we only got to practice one time. So
as professional as these look.
Joan, would you like to finish that question out for us?
I would. As far as the rail goes, what Councilman Waters suggested doing is exactly what I have been doing for 6 years. We did come together as the region, as municipalities, on the corridor for our peak service plan. We do have partnerships with Amtrak, BNSF, Front Range Passenger Rail. We do have an investor that has been talking to us over the 3 years and actually met with our staff.
30 seconds.
And our RTD directors. Last night, during our council meeting, I got a text from our RTD director that the board has said they're going to give us $17 million for our First and Main Transit Station. So we are working on this. For local transportation, I am on a committee that is working to figure out local transportation in partnership with RTD to continue.
Time.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the city council candidates. And this time we will start with Marcia, then Sean, Aaron, Talis, Shakita, Diane, and Jeremy moves to the end to finish it off for us. This question is, the library is designed and funded for a city of 68,000 people, while Longmont now has a population of over 100,000. Would you or would you not support increasing the library's operating budget? And if yes, how would you propose to pay for that? And if not, why not? Marcia.
Thank you. Yes, I support increasing the library's operational budget, as well as its capital budget, honestly, because I don't think that the building we have is adequate. It certainly doesn't have the technological resources that a modern library needs to have. And we just saw in our most recent budget, which was just the last few days, the last few city council meetings, an example of what happens when the library is in competition with the human services budget, which is that the library always loses. And, we tried to rob an endowed fund for visually impaired people in order to buy an expensive piece of capital equipment for the library. We need a special library district. It's probably the one tax that the people of Longmont would levy on themselves now because everybody loves the library.
Thank you, Marcia. Sean.
Well, thank you there. I definitely think that we need to support the library in any way. I mean, this is a community that is growing a little bit older. They're talking about how the Front Range in Colorado, a lot of people are moving here. And I know that our general demographic here in Longmont is like 35, but, in a few years, it's going to be 40 and so on and so forth. And so we have to address that the library is a critical part of our community. I remember when the last library was there. In fact, I remember the last two libraries. And I remember when the last one fell overnight, literally. It was demolished and there was some real hay to be made over that. But I think we can look at some sort of a special library tax in district because I think the community understands how important libraries are to us, especially after this episode with COVID.
Thank you, Sean. Aaron.
Well, thank you very much. I would say that this city council has been very serious about talking about the library, not just because of the leadership of some of our fellow council members, but also in the sense that we know that we have a growing community and that the library in and of itself, where it's located and the size of it, it does not adequately service the size of community that we are now in Longmont. As such, I would definitely support an annex or at least another library within the city of Longmont, where that place, who knows? Because we are currently dealing with a feasibility study that we're looking at right now, and I hope that whether I'm on the next council or not, I will support it. And I hope every candidate will also support it because Longmont needs more library.
Thanks, Aaron. Talis?
I think one of the things that is very critical to having a good elected official is leadership and vision. I am going to quickly address the mayoral question about the rail. PricewaterhouseCoopers recently announced that they're going to allow all of their employees to work from home permanently. So I think it's very important that we look at the changing market for labor. And if I believe that there's going to be a growing population of people who won't need to commute as much. So we have to take that into consideration when we're looking at infrastructure spending. Now, going back to my question about the library, on the same topic, I think the library, it really depends on what we use the funds for. I envision the library as being a center for retooling and reskilling our workforce, allowing more people to get into tech jobs like programming and developers. With our infrastructure, I think we should really be careful about where we spend every dollar of our hard-earned tax revenues.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Yes, thank you. Well, the library is an equitable infrastructure of our community. That's where people who may not have a computer can go and use the computer. That is a place where students can go and be read to. Maybe they can't be read to at home because maybe their parents are working 2 jobs. It is critical and crucial that we have the funding to increase the funding for the library, whether we have more than one or whatever we need to do. What we need to do, how do we get that funds at this time? I'm not too much sure, maybe a levy, but I think maybe we can ask the community that question. How would they like to pay for the increase of funding for a necessary community infrastructure? So I say we ask the community how they would like to pay for it, but I definitely will vote for an increase in funding.
Thank you, Shakita. Diane.
In the proposed budget, the library has been given $5,000 extra this year. It's not enough money. And I believe we have the money in the budget to support the library more fully. I agree with Shakita and also Marcia about, I was on a military assignment. We moved 11 times in 6 years. And the library was often the source of computer, printing, information on the town that we were living in, and resources for business. And I know that that is true for members of this community as well. And the hardest thing for me during the pandemic was having the library closed, honestly. I read like 6 books a month, if not more. I believe the money is in the budget. And actually, also, I want to mention that the library does human services because that's where homeless go during the day. So I think they're entitled to some of that budget money as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And Jeremy, you get to finish.
Thanks. I feel like the library is very important in empowering our youth, not just the youth, but the early workforce. I mean, it is a great public service. And as the city has grown, I 100% support the annexing or satellite libraries on different sides of the town, or also even starting to do joint programs with Front Range Community College, having, public libraries through their resources, through state funding or federal funding, however that may work, to kind of, lower the tax, on the citizens or the burden that goes anywhere else. We can use the education fund and the marijuana taxes and all the other resources that we have out there to make the library a better resource for the entire city and all the citizens in Longmont.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, we're moving back to the mayoral candidates, and Gregory, you get to go first this time, Joan, and then Tim. Has Longmont's 12% inclusionary zoning ordinance worked as intended, resulting in more planned or completed affordable housing? What policies, incentives, and partnerships would you change, or would you vote to repeal this ordinance? Gregory.
No, I don't think there's a need to repeal inclusionary housing. We're already at 12%. I don't think there's a need to increase it either. I think where we're at is just fine. I think where we're at with affordable housing is fine. We need to concentrate on attainable housing. The city council, most of them have been working on this at least 4 years. We still don't have any in inventory. Metro Housing Coalition came out with a report recently. They said 11 counties, including Longmont and the surrounding area, had no attainable housing, none in inventory and none in construction. And getting back to the library question, there's a $400 million budget and the second reading's already happened. There's still time to change that budget. They already voted for $5,000 for the library. It's on the city council to change that budget. 4 votes are right in front of me right now that voted for the $5,000. They can change that right now before the last reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. Joan?
I'm proud of our inclusionary zoning ordinance. I think that it is done. It has the ability to do exactly what we want. When we put it in 2018, it took a while for developers to come and get in their permits and their development concept plans, et cetera. And it takes at least 9 months to a year to get anything passed through the city and the state as far as requirements. And then 2020 hit. So to say our inclusionary zoning ordinance is not working is not necessarily true. The other thing I want to say is that a developer can build whatever they want as long as they follow the inclusionary zoning ordinance. So to say that there's no building in the 80 to 120% tile is up to the developer, if whatever they want to put on their land, but they have to follow the ordinance. So
thank you. And Tim.
I was part of the council that crafted the inclusionary housing ordinance. So the 12% is just part of it. And we did a number of things in the package with developers to keep them in the game to build affordable housing in Longmont. We did a number of offsets. We were creative and we listened well to the development community. So regardless of what you've heard in this, I couldn't give you the number off the top of my head, but there are a number of affordable units under construction right now in Longmont. And whether Mr. Harris either doesn't want to recognize it or is just unaware of it, there are 300 attainable homes that will be market rate for families earning 80 to 120% right now under development in Longmont, in the Highlands Project and in the Mountain View Project. So, you can say anything. The facts are not consistent with what you've heard. And our inclusionary housing ordinance with the mid-tier exception is what caused those developers to change their plats and their plans and build attainable housing.
Thank you, Tim. All right, let's go back to our council candidates. Sean, you will be up first this time, followed by Aaron, Talis, Shakita, Diane, Jeremy, and Marcia. What is or is not working with regard to how we treat our unhoused population? And what policies would you propose to address this issue? Sean?
Well, what I believe is that we have to do something to help our unhoused population. We have to do more things like making sure that we have sharps and needle collection, that we also consider sharps and needle distribution at certain points if we had to. We also need to probably look seriously at a homeless shelter in Longmont. My suggestion would be somewhere around Nelson and Hover Road, at the area where the old Walmart was, been blighted. It's far enough away from other residential areas, but it also has a unique situation where it is it has a full parking lot that could be used for charging vehicles that people are using to camp in and things like that. So, I mean, we have some options here, some things to consider. And that's not the only idea. I'm just coming up with something that might be a creative way to help the community.
Thank you, Sean. Aaron.
Thank you very much for the question. I will say that, first of all, homeless situations are not unique to the city of Longmont. They're obviously found all along the Front Range. And we've seen some draconian measures from Denver and Boulder that probably help spill some of those folks to Longmont, because Longmont is not so draconian, if you will. And so I don't necessarily propose increasing services from a city level, but what I will say is that in ARPA funds, there's the possibility that we could possibly coordinate and more closely align our facilities, build maybe new facilities to ensure that folks can find the kind of help that they need for those folks who are trying to get out of homelessness versus those folks who are choosing homelessness. And I think that's the distinction that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Talis.
Glad you bring this up. This is a very important issue. I was on the Community Actions Programs Board, CAP Board, and I worked with Alberto Mendoza closely on this issue. There's over 1,000 people, 1% of our population, who are homeless adults, and then there's between about 3,000 kids on the brink of homelessness. I think it's a tragedy that there's so many kids who are unable to get proper education because they don't have their basic needs met. I've been working with the R Center. I met with Mark Cowell, the executive director, and
30 seconds.
I did a tour of the advanced manufacturing program at Front Range Community College. I'm putting together a pipeline to get people reskilled and trained so that they can make 25 to 30 bucks an hour with new skills. This is something that I'm doing today. And also the issue with disenfranchising of the people who are experiencing homelessness is horrible. I spent 4 hours at the R Center meeting people who are experiencing homelessness. None of them can vote because they don't have an address. I don't see anyone on the city council doing anything to help.
Please finish.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Thank you. First of all, we need to get to the core of the problem. There's a reason why people are unhoused. A lot of times people have mental health issues. So we have to address the issues so that they can overcome being unhoused. If we put them in the house and they still having mental health issues, and you say you're going to reskill them, what will happen if they're not healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy? Yes, I agree. They do need an address. I understand that, but we need to find what is the core problem as to why they are unhoused first. I believe that organizations need to partner together. There's no reason why someone that go in for an assessment can't see someone for an appointment for a month out. They need services now. We need organizations that need to partner together to help that community. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakita. Diane.
Well, these are all great ideas. Talis is right. If you're unhoused or in a sleeper vehicle and you don't have an address, you cannot vote. So you don't have representation in your government. Shakita is correct. We need to work on figuring out why. I've heard different theories as to why people are unhoused. And I think we need to keep hammering on this until we understand exactly what's going on. It may be more than one problem. When Sean talks about needle collection, a lot of that happens at the library, which I'm not sure is the appropriate place to be collecting needles because there are so many children around there. But that emphasizes how much human services the library does in town. And these are all things that need to be discussed. And I just want to say, this is a great panel of candidates in that we're all thinking very creatively about this problem. And I think there are solutions here. And maybe the biggest one is we need to tackle mental health. And that's a big one. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Jeremy.
Thanks. So first thing, remember the people that's experiencing these, they are still human beings. They're still part of us. I met with, and a lot of you guys may be familiar, Agape. You know, Agape have recently lost their funding from the city of Longmont. They're not funded anymore because of their stance on sobriety, on the low barrier initiative. I feel like if you have those people experiencing that and have, you know, issued and got the help that Shakita and everybody's talking about to say, I want to become sober, we can give them that option. A community neighborhood with the resources like the tiny homes for veterans will be another option that we could try to look at as city council for people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. And we'll finish with Marcia on this question.
Thank you. I would like to point out that several people have mentioned incorrectly the idea that if you don't have an address, you can't vote. That isn't true in Colorado law. I acted as an election judge in several elections before I was elected to council, and you absolutely can. And if anybody is unhoused and they're told that they can't vote because of addressing problems, it's because the election judge is in error and you should ask for a provisional ballot and vote. So that Longmont needs three things. We need case managed transitional housing for homeless. We need to design our parks and other facilities around the idea that there are going to be unhoused people sharing their facility with the public, making them hardened, making them have sharps disposal and water use, stuff like that.
Thank you, Marcia. All right, we move back to Joan, Tim, and Gregory in that order. Joan, how does the city maintain a tax base that supports Longmont's quality of life and attracts employers who provide good quality jobs?
That brings us back to housing and transportation. So I do think that our city council and staff are definitely taking into consideration the entire envelope, I guess is what I'm going to call it, of salaries, of average income, from people making $12 an hour to those making $60,000 a month. And I think that we keep our tax base by having permanently affordable housing for 30 years on some of the lower income, the lower housing, so that if someone transfers or buys up, we still have that housing for our middle class and lower income class to keep our tax base constant and to give people housing.
Time.
Thank you, Joan. Tim.
Yeah, we have several forms of or sources of revenue: fees, sales tax, property tax, and use tax. Those are the sources of revenue. If we want to optimize those sources of revenue, then we can do it a couple of ways or grow those sources of revenues. One is by creating and promoting opportunities for people who live outside to come to Longmont to spend their marginal dollars. We do that through our downtown business corridor, through our hospitality scene. If we want to attract the kind of new business, light industry, knowledge-based employers, then we're going to have a town that's kind of amenitized in ways that's attractive to the kind of talent we want to bring. So that's parks, recreation, places to play, as well as work. So we're going to get to the point where we don't have more residential growth. We're going to have to get real creative about who we bring and how we bring them and how they spend and what they spend to support the lifestyle in Longmont.
Thank you, Tim. And Gregory.
Thank you. Frankly, I don't care who we bring into town. I'd like everybody to come. This town is going to grow. We need to expedite project approval. We need to require quarterly reports, like I said before. They're just getting, the city council has asked for one report annually. You can't do anything with that. We need to increase our housing. There's plenty of places that we can keep building houses. Longmont's growing, and we all know it's going to keep growing. We could build houses from Main Street towards the airport. That'll bring plenty of revenue. Once we clear up the traffic and stuff, that'll bring in the workforce again too, which they won't be sitting in traffic. We can expand on our airport. We can put a restaurant. We can expand the runway where they can use more fuel. That was already agreed back in 2007 by the city council, and they still have not followed through with helping that airport. There's a lot of things we can do to bring people in here and get affordable housing. Attainable housing. I know Tim said there's some coming down the pike. He's had 4 years to bring it in.
Time.
Thank you, Gregory. All right, next question, starting with Aaron, and then Talis, Shakita, Diane, Jeremy, Marcia, and Sean. Aaron, do you support a new rec center with a pool and or a convention center for the city? If yes, how would you pay for these amenities? And if not, why not?
So I think you have to break those pieces down. I do believe that the city of Longmont, also similar to my question, similar to my answer about the library, is that a city of this size does deserve another rec center based on an equitable and close enough part of the town to get to. As far as the pool is concerned, that's a whole different conversation now that the St. Vrain Valley School District has decided to build their own pool, which they did not necessarily support the last time around. So, now that the St. Vrain Valley School District has decided to build their own pool, that's one thing. But we do need another rec center in this city. As far as how we pay for it, I think that we may be able to bond it, or there's a possibility of a special district in concept. But I would not necessarily utilize the special district concept as it's a taxation issue without the vote of the people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Talis.
That's a great question. Prior to COVID, I was coaching soccer at St. Vrain FC. And so I understand how important recreation and youth sports are to our community. I totally support additional recreation opportunities for our young people in our community, and even other people in our community as well, not just the youth. But however, on the convention center thing, I'm not sure what the ROI is going to be on that. I haven't looked at the numbers, what the projections are. I need to really do some financial analysis to be able to make an educated decision on whether allocation of funds for a convention center is prudent. I mean, considering we already have, where we do our farmers market, that could act somewhat as a convention center. So I'm not convinced that there's a reason to expend those resources. However, for the rec center, I think that's a great idea. I think that, there's so many benefits to keeping kids off the street, keeping them off.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
So similar to the question about the library, I agree. I believe we do need another rec center. We are a growing city. And also the same reason for another library or larger funding for the library. Same for the rec center. It's important for our students and our kids and our families, making sure that it's equitable and making sure it's in a neighborhood that it's all inclusive to all. And that's very important to me. And a convention center, I really believe that Boulder have a large, they have the JCC. Why can't we have a money-making convention center where we can have events and everything here as well? I think it would be nice to have one here, and so people don't have to have events in Boulder. It would be great to have one here in Longmont. And again, we should ask our community how they would like to pay for this convention center.
Thank you, Shakita. Diane.
I do not support a new rec center at this time. And I want to reference something that Tim said about the way that we can raise more money in town. It is true that about 15%, if we take property tax out of the equation, about 15% of the income belongs to the government, which leaves the other 85% into the private sector. And one way to raise more money for the government is to enhance the private sector in terms of sales tax, use tax, more licensing, that type of thing. And in addition to that, Greg is also correct in that the way to really do that is to focus more heavily in terms of the free market and the abundance we can create in the private sector. One thing I want to say about a rec center is in some cities, they have enough surplus that they actually augment other budgets like the police department from the rec center. And our rec center at this time is not doing that, but it could. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Jeremy.
Thanks. Yes, I mean, right now, like I said, the whole COVID is going to have a lasting impact on our youth when it comes to social skills and everything. Giving them the extra resources to be able to be amongst their peers and their same age groups on more occasions is going to be beneficial to their success long time. We do have the rec center. We have the YMCA here in Longmont. We have Sunset Pool. We have a lot of city recreational resources already. Building a brand new one, is it smart? Maybe not, but putting money into the ones that we have existing and bringing them to state-of-art facilities would be, to me, the best way to voice and get the public's opinion on how to spend their taxpayer dollars. I mean, just going and building new infrastructure is not always the key.
Thank you, Jeremy. Marcia.
Thank you. Yes, and yes, I think that we don't have enough rec centers. In fact, what I would like to do is put 2 more rec centers in, one essentially in each ward. So one up by Dry Creek and then one somewhere about where Centennial Pool is because it's not salvageable. It needs to be replaced, not repaired. The other thing is that we need a convention center. We lost a lot of revenue. Visitation revenue is important to Longmont. And we need that that convention center to be combined with the Cultural and Performing Arts Center. And Shakita and Jeremy are absolutely right. All this is about our children. This is about social equity. This is being the kind of city that you want to grow up in. And I have looked into the finances, and although those...
Sorry. Thank you, Marcia. And Sean, you can finish this question out for us.
All right. So, yes, I absolutely support it. Some people would say that the perfect size of a community is about 125 100,000 people. And to Tim's point, we probably need to look at how we're going to pay for this, and we're going to have to listen to the community and see, how do they want us to do this? Is it through fees or sales tax or property taxes or a bond? And as far as the convention center, Dr. Peter Schmidt and I worked on the the Committee for the Cultural and Performing Arts in 2006 to 2008. And we tried to bring a performing arts center or convention center to Longmont, something like the size of the Dairy Center. And yes, it is about social equity, and it is about the youth. And as somebody who swims about 6,000 meters a week, I can tell you, I love our recreational centers and
Thank you.
utilize them to the best of our ability.
Thank you, Sean. All right, we're moving to the next question, and it goes to Tim, Gregory, and Joan in that order. Tim, what are metro districts, and should they be used to support housing development in Longmont?
Metro districts are a tool for financing the cost of infrastructure that really were popularized in the post-Tabor election. Cities used to be able to, without a vote of the public, build infrastructure upon which development occurred. The change in the Constitution disallows that. So the only option left for developers there were a number of ways to fund it. One of them was to create the special district. So that's the purpose. It acts a little bit like an HOA before there's an HOA, and it does it by establishing through a vote of property owners a property tax that's going to be used to service a bond that pays for the cost of infrastructure, that residents then service that debt through a property tax over a period of time. They're used all over Colorado. Not in every case are they used well, but they are used well in the communities where the elected officials are smart enough to do their homework, to develop the right kind of criteria to recognize a good application from a bad application.
Thank you, Tim. Gregory.
Thank you. I just want to go back and address the rec center real quick. I would like to know what the usage of the current rec center would be and get a study done before we start moving forward on that. I think that's the prudent thing to do. And back to the other question, I'm all for metro districting. I think it's a great idea. Joan Peck was actually the one who voted against it with the other couple members. And I think that was a bad idea. Metro districting is exactly what we could use to bring in a lot of businesses and other housing throughout Longmont.
30 seconds.
Because Longmont's going to keep growing. And like I said, we need more attainable housing, and there's plenty of land for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. And Joan.
I'm going to unmute. Whenever you say district, you always have to put the word tax in front of that. So it would, and I am against the residential metro tax districts, not the commercial taxing districts. I don't believe that developers should be able to tax our residents. A metro district creates a quasi-governmental agency. It has the right to tax the residents within the development without their vote, which takes the control away from the residents and the local and state government. The initial cost may be lower than market value, but the metro taxes added to property tax bill over time makes the house unaffordable. Selling the house is difficult when banks look at income to debt ratio. The metro district has the right for eminent domain. There's no oversight on the state level and no accountability. It's taxation without representation. We have two districts here, the Village at the Peaks and Harvest Junction.
Thank you, Joan. All right. Next up, the question begins with Talis, followed by Shakita, Diane, Jeremy, Marsha, Sean, and Aaron. Do you support needle exchange sites and public receptacles for disposal of needles in order to keep public spaces clean and safe? Why or why not? Talis.
I appreciate that question. I absolutely do. I think that needle exchanges are critical to preventing diseases that are transferred through body fluids, including HIV. I think that it's a travesty what we have going on with our opiate epidemic throughout the nation, and a lot of people who maybe started on opiates move to injectables. So I think that there should be a lot of thought and care when it comes to people who have addiction issues, and
30 seconds.
do to support them is great. I do, however, want to thank Tim Waters because he educated me on metro districts, and I completely agree with both Greg and Tim on metro districts.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Yes, I do believe that we should have a location where for those needles. And the reason why is because it will be a place where actually we can probably get data from there. How many people are using needles and how many people are addicted? And I think it will provide more of a safe measure in our city than the needles just being thrown anywhere, and it's not safe for our kids or our community in general. So having a location where people can leave their needles, I think it also will provide us data of how many people are using needles, and having that central location is much more safer for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakita. Diane.
First, I want to say thank you to Damaris and Amy for saying that they will post information on how unhoused can vote and use an address. And then I want to talk about needles a little bit. I'm not sure that that is an effective program. I guess I don't have much data about that, but I guess my concern with it is that we're treating a symptom and we're not actually looking for what the problem is.
30 seconds.
And I think Shakita's much more on the target with that in terms of we need to figure out if this is a mental health issue and focus on that more so than on any enabling behavior. We need to work on health rather than servicing illness. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Jeremy.
Yes, I am 100% on board with giving those receptacles a place and a home in our parks, open spaces, everywhere, because there's a lot of people who don't have kids, but have four-legged animals that they call their kids. So it'd be detrimental to them into the open spaces and then into the waterways and the streams that's in the open space that could also affect any of the farmers or anything else where those spillways leak into, their water sources. And you're right. I mean, it could be a mental issue, but we don't want to say it's an enabling issue, because on those receptacles, you could put hotlines on where to get help. I mean, we're giving them resources and tools, but also giving them a place to put their trash. Just like if you drink a can of beer, you have a trash can or a recyclable bin to put your beer in. That's a habit as well. So we want to give those people resources so they still feel like they're part of the community, not saying, hey, what's your issue? No, we want to be there to support them all the way through.
Thank you, Jeremy. Marcia.
Thank you. Yes, we definitely need needle exchange and receptacles, and both of the suggestions that we have about where they belong are correct. First, we need to co-locate needle exchange programs with the navigation center in the St. Vrain hub, and any new navigation centers that we might have, including at Hope, where people using needle exchange can be provided with advice about how to change their addictions. We also, recognizing that people are not going to go there just to save up their needles and put them in the little red box. We need to put them in the restrooms, and we need to also harden our restrooms so that they can't be vandalized easily, and so that users can tell whether the room is occupied or not before entering.
Time.
Thank you, Marcia. Sean.
All right. I think we have to kind of take in all of the above. Marcia has a great point about how we need to deal with our restrooms and how we with the places where we need to put these disposal receptacles, as well as distribution. My daughter worked for the Longmont Rec Department, and she worked at the Roosevelt Building. And there's an incredible large amount of homelessness that's going on in that area there. And I can tell you that every day there was some sort of problem. And the fact is that, we want to be able to use our parks. So we have to take, probably in this case here, we have to do what larger cities have done about needle receptacles and distribution. And we also have to take a housing first approach. In 2017, I was at the homeless forum at the museum, and they always talk about whether it's you house people first, and then you look at dealing with their mental health issues and their addictions. And then you can deal with the other issues that are really
Thank you, Sean.
important to them.
Thank you. And Aaron, you get to finish it out for us, please.
All right, thank you very much. I think that needle disposal and receptacles along that concept are very important. I know that many of the city's buildings are already been outfitted with these kinds of devices. What I will say, though, is that, in my opinion, when I see the kind of usage that we see in our city and how there's tendency not to dispose of them properly, adding free
30 seconds.
Thank you. Adding free, I guess you would say, exchange is not necessarily the right way. I think we need to approach this from more of a mental health perspective, a homelessness perspective, not so much a needle perspective. We need to deal with the person, not the habit. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, we're going to move to the Ask Your Opponent section. All right, get excited. But right before we do that, I want to we did a quick fact check. Kathy Partridge did a quick fact check, and I love this. I always tell my students to double check their work. But Kathy went to the Secretary of State website, and this is what it says about voting. If you do not have a fixed permanent residence, this will be really quick. If you are homeless, permanently reside in a recreational vehicle, an RV, or for whatever reason have no fixed permanent address, you may use any address that you regularly return to and have the intent to remain. This location is referred to as a home base and may be used for voter registration purposes. So we have that cleared up. All right, let's move to Ask Your Opponent. Are you all excited? I can tell you're so excited. All right. Each mayoral candidate may ask their two opponents a question. It may be the same question for each or a different question for each. For example, Joan may ask Tim a question and he will have 1 minute to answer, and then you can ask Gregory a question and he has a minute to answer. Then Tim and Gregory will follow by asking their questions the same way. Gregory is up first. You can ask Joan and Tim your questions. Gregory.
Okay, I had a trouble with my fingers there, Clay. All right, this first one's for Tim. Tim, why'd you support the adoption of a carbon tax, which will add 44 cents a gallon to the Longmont drivers?
What I supported, I voted in favor of a resolution, a Longmont resolution encouraging Congress to create the carbon tax as part of a bigger package. So until until the Congress approves the legislation, there is no carbon tax. You've made several references, I've heard you publicly talk about a carbon tax that doesn't exist, Mr. Harris. So there isn't one, but the European Union is actively engaged in creating their own carbon tax. Do I still have time?
30 seconds.
Oh, and if we're going to participate, if we're going to trade with the EU and with the UK, we are either going to be at a disadvantage, or our Congress is going to position us to compete on a level playing field with other markets around the world.
Thank you, Tim. And Gregory, for Joan?
For Joan. Joan, if you're so concerned about the air pollution, can you tell him how come you haven't done anything to secure the expansion of the Highway 66 funding?
The Highway 66 funding is going to be secured through DRCOG federal funds and through some state transportation funds. There is a committee already working on that. And at this point, as far as I'm concerned, we're going to wait to see what funds are coming down from the government to DRCOG.
Thank you, Joan. All right, you're up next, Jen. Oh,
well, everyone has 1 minute.
I thought she was done.
I am.
That's
okay.
what I thought.
I am.
I just thought there might be some confusion. So you have a minute, so.
All right, Joan, it's your turn to ask your questions.
Okay, for Tim, I was wondering why, and I do understand your idea of the metro districts of having oversight on the council, but we have 2 metro districts in Village at the Peaks and at, I forgot the other one out there.
Harvest Junction.
Yes, thank you. And we as a council never discussed those, even though we are supposed to have oversight on them. And I brought it up a couple of times.
Well, Joan, those aren't metro districts. Those are special districts.
Exactly, they're special metro.
Well, there's a difference between a metro district and a special district. Difference between a metro district and a general improvement district, a business improvement district, or tax increment financing, all of which exists at the metro or at the Village of the Peaks in Harvest Junction. That's in great contrast to metro districts to finance infrastructure for residential development.
My question was,
I brought 23 along with Marcia, 23 amendments to the ordinance.
30 seconds.
Our ordinance on metro districts, one of which was to ensure that if they were approved, or that we would favor, one of the amendments I proposed is that we would favor applications that invited a council member to sit on the board as a non-voting member. You voted against that amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you voted for the ordinance. So your statement a few minutes ago about having voted against it, Mr. Harris, by the way, is wrong as well on this one. On August 11th, you voted for the amendment or for the ordinance.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Joan, what would you like to ask Gregory?
Gregory, on transportation, what would you do for local transportation?
Oh, that's a good one. Thank you, Joan. For transportation, I love bringing in buses, the RTD and stuff. I also like any other ideas to run through the city council, whoever brings them up. But also, like I said, I like bikes. I like cars. I like walking. I like everything. I think as long as we work out the congestion, which is opening Highway 66, the city council, I don't know who was in charge of that 9th Avenue where they cut 4 lanes down to 2, but that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I've heard more complaints from people in the neighborhood than anyone else. And if you want to see congestion and pollution, go over to Francis Street and 9th Avenue where they just turned 4 lanes into 2 and see what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Gregory. All right. We are moving on to the lightning round. Yes, no.
No, I think I get to ask 2 questions.
Oh, did I skip you?
Yes, you did.
No, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Tim, you're up next.
Mr. Harris, I'm going to go back to a question I asked earlier. You say a lot of things that just are factually not true. Tonight, you've talked about Highway 66 without any knowledge, apparently, of the Highway 66 plan that's approved by CDOT. Number 2, you're unaware of the 300 homes that are under construction that are attainable homes, and you misrepresented Councilmember Peck's vote on the Metro District ordinance. So are you just not interested in the facts, or are you just unaware of them?
Well, I'm sorry, I haven't bloviated for 4 years with the city council, but I did look up what was going on with the Highway 66, and they are waiting for approval of funding. So you're wrong on that. Secondly, what was your other 2 points? Attainable housing. You've been there 4 years, and all I know is in 4 years, you haven't brought any attainable housing to date yet. So good job on that one. And the third one, what was your third question again, Tim?
You misrepresented Councilmember Peck's vote on the Metro District ordinance. Another misrepresentation.
She was one of the 3 or 4 other people on the screen that voted against Metro District, or why isn't it still in the city?
Not true.
Smile away.
It's just not true. Go back and read the August 11th council minutes. Joan, to you. First of all, I want you to know how much I appreciate the work you've done on RTD. And you've been diligent and persistent. But in 7 years, we keep waiting for meaningful, tangible progress. What is it 7 years later that you could point to as tangible progress on bringing commuter rail to Longmont?
First of all, we changed the vision. The first vision was 55 trains a day, double tracked, and with cantilevers as a light rail project. What we changed it to was peak service, BNSF sharing the lane, the rail with freight. It took a long time to get the mayors on the corridor to understand that. It took a long time. It never did really get the commissioners on board, but we did get NADA on board. We
30
did
seconds.
get Governor Polis on board. And the reason that we changed it to peak service is why Amtrak is interested in us, because they are going to do peak service rather than the full train, because they lost money on the full passenger rail in during the pandemic. At the Colorado Rail meeting I was at 2 weeks ago, they are even talking about double tracking it at some point. This is a huge deal for us.
Thank you, Joan. All right, thank you. Now it's time for the lightning round. My apologies, Tim, on that. All right, lightning round. These are yes, no questions, and you get a 30-second opportunity to explain your answers. We are going to start with the city council candidates this time, and it's going to be Talis. You're going to be up first with Shakita, Diane, Jeremy, Marsha, and Aaron. The yes, no question with a 30-second response. Would you follow Denver's lead and advocate and vote for a ban of assault weapons and open carry of all firearms within Longmont city limits?
Are we talking, so we're talking about assault weapons and open carry, correct?
Yes, of all firearms within Longmont city limits.
I would not ban open carry. I think there's a lot of police officers and other very highly trained people who have the right to carry because they've gone through the, certain, holes that they, or hoops that they jump through rather. And I think that responsible gun ownership is important in Colorado. We have a lot of hunters. We have a lot of people who have grown up in the gun culture. I started shooting when I was a young teenager.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Can you ask that question, repeat that question for me again?
I can. Would you follow Denver's lead and advocate and vote for a ban of assault weapons and open carry of all firearms within Longmont's city limits?
I think that would be too expensive, and I just no, I don't think I wouldn't follow Denver's lead with that. I just think that we need to make sure that we protect our community, and I do believe that people have the right, but not all firearms. No, not at all.
Thank you, Shakita. Diane?
No, I would not. The people's right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And anyone that has military background, has been out on base, everyone's carrying a weapon, and sometimes the discussions get contentious, but yet nobody gets shot. We can handle this. We just need the discipline.
Thank you, Diane. Jeremy?
No, and because of the Second Amendment, but when the term of assault rifle, I've never been into no gun store or Cabela's and they sold me an assault rifle. So that term is kind of used a little vaguely. And also the state has the magazine capacity to kind of fight those issues we're having with those, weapons that can fire rounds at a high capacity. So I would not support Denver's lead on this issue.
Thank you, Jeremy. Marsha?
Thank you. No, but for a different reason. I think the Second Amendment has been misinterpreted, and that we do not actually have individual rights to keep and bear arms, especially above a certain level of power. So the reason I oppose it is because it's unenforceable. It needs to come from the national level or the state level at least. And the new state law that allows local control of firearm regulations is silly.
Thank you, Marcia. Sean.
No, I teach US Gov, and I will tell you that we have a well-regulated militia. That's our police, our county sheriffs, our state patrol, our state troopers, other people like that. I was on council when we banned assault weapons or any sort of weapons coming into city buildings, and I think that's about as much as we could probably handle, because this is probably a federal issue, and we can't spend our time in courts.
Thank you, Sean. And Aaron.
Thank you. I believe that a similar resolution came before City Council, and I already voted no on it. I would continue to vote no on it in the sense that it does have to come from a state or federal level. We live very close to Weld County. We live very close to the state of Wyoming, and there's no regulating them from the city of Longmont. And so I also believe it's extremely divisive for our community, and we need unity in our community, not divisiveness.
Thank you, Aaron. And now the same question goes to Joan, Tim, and Gregory. Joan.
No, I wouldn't, because it's unenforceable going from city to city. It has to be the state level. It has to be a federal level.
Thank you, Joan. Tim?
I think I'm going to, just in different words, make the same statement that the council members Peck and Martin have made. What the state did with the ordinance that, or the legislation, the bill that passed, it sets up a patchwork of regulatory decisions across the state, which turns my son, who's a gun enthusiast in Arvada, into a criminal when he walks, into Longmont. And that's just the worst approach to this. This is a federal issue at best, a state issue at worst, but it's not local municipalities.
Thank you, Tim. And Gregory.
Thank you. I am for open carry. I'm for conceal and carry. I'm for everything it takes to jump through the hoops, all the hoops to get a weapon. I'm for training and education as well. When we were young, they trained you in school how to use a weapon. I mean, when you train people to use weapons, then they understand what safety is about. It's the people who don't know how to use them and who aren't trained that are dangerous. It's the criminals who make things dangerous. Look at Texas. There is far less trouble in Texas because they have open carry, and it seems to work there, and I think it works here just fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. All right, you all, the clock has ticked us down to almost closing time on this. So we're going to go ahead and move to your closing remarks for the evening. Each of you will get 1.5 minutes to speak. I promise I won't skip anyone this time. We'll flip the order, and we're going to start with the council candidates first, and then we will end with the mayoral candidates, just like we did a minute ago. But let's start with your closing remarks. It will be Marcia, Sean, Aaron, Talis, Shakita, Diane, and Jeremy. Marcia.
I would just like to say that in my opinion, we need to get back to a saner form of politics, and that means that saying something doesn't make it true. We've had several rebuttals in the course of this debate where someone was questioned and someone else just repeated the assertion that was being questioned again, which makes no difference. It's a fantasy that you can improve your infrastructure without spending any money on it. It's a fantasy that there's a silver bullet root cause to homelessness and that we can do one thing and it'll fix everything. We need to get back to reality. I'm for reality. I am for evidence-based policy making. And that's really all I have to say. Let's get back to Walter Cronkite truth and honesty in our politics, and we'll do a lot better.
Thank you, Marcia. Sean. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Again, I'm Sean McCoy. I'm running for Longmont City Council at large because I believe that I can be a positive force for good in the community that I love. I believe that we need to address several important issues for our city. Longmonters are returning to the office and need alternative transit options. I want to investigate options like working with Amtrak to create commuter rail, connect with the rest of the Front Range. Efficient mass transit options would also bring business and tourism to Longmont while decreasing our overall community carbon footprint. I want to make sure Longmont is a safe place, a city where everyone feels comfortable raising their family, just like I've done. I want to see safe and affordable housing so people of all economic levels can have an equal chance by an amazing life in our community. I want to make sure that we have affordable single-family dwellings and apartments available for purchase as well as for rentals. By increasing our affordable housing stock, we can take on the challenges of helping unhoused individuals find homes and ensure that our current residents can afford affordable stay in Longmont. I believe that we need to increase Longmont's substance abuse counseling and clean use solutions. So if you believe those things as I do, please vote for me, Sean McCoy, for Longmont City Council, and go to McCoyforLongmont.com to find out more information about me and my campaign. Thank you for having me tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Aaron.
Thank you very much. As stated, I am Aaron Rodriguez. So let's just take a look at some of the facts in the sense that I've been on city council for 4 years. As mentioned, some folks don't think that we've done a lot. I think that we've done a lot, in my opinion. And whether I agree or disagree with other candidates that have also been on city council, affordable housing has been a great priority for the city council. I think we've done good things. But we do need to do more to, again, increase the mission for families, single adults, and people looking for permanent supportive housing. We need to also expand our views to attainable workforce housing. That's been spoken about a lot. I would also like to say that we need to talk about infrastructure, which was not talked about a lot tonight, but I would like to say that prioritizing that and being forward thinking on that is a tradition for the city of Longmont. We need to do that as well. And also, I'd like to talk about community, because at the end of the day, because of the divisiveness nationally, we need to be a city that is together, right? We can disagree with each other, but we don't have to be enemies with each other. And at the end of the day, I think through my 4 years already of being on city council, that I've demonstrated that I can talk to both sides and that you can feel confident in voting to reelect Rodriguez in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Talis?
I'd like to thank everyone, Boulder County Democrats, Longmont Area Democrats, and Professor Grimm for all your hard effort in putting this all together. As I said in my opening, this is a very critical component of democracy. And so I'd like to thank everyone who's watching at home. Thank you all. This is very important. I think that during this conversation, I've shown why I'm a leader and why my skills will be very valuable onto the city council. The things that I'm for helping businesses as paramount. During COVID, they've been really struggling and they need someone with my experience to help them bounce back. I'm also for workforce attainable housing, conservation, protection of our open spaces, reskilling programs, and we need new ideas on council. If Aaron was so good at finding attainable and affordable housing, then why wasn't he endorsed by the Metro Housing Coalition or anyone else who has to deal with housing? I was endorsed by both Metro Housing Coalition and the local Longmont Realtors Association. So please consider me as a new voice and an advocate on the city council. Check out tallis.co, tallis.co. Thank you.
Thank you, Talis. Shakita.
Thank you all again for having this platform for us. And although it was kind of shaky in the beginning, you figured it out. That's okay. It's just like, that's what a community does. That's how we do it, right? And all of us was patient because we know the outcome of this. So I'm grateful to be running for city council at large. And I may be new to politics. I am new to politics. I actually learned a lot listening to the mayoral candidates, but I'm not new to Longmont. I have invested in the city of Longmont and have fought for the well-being of our whole entire community. I believe we all deserve affordable housing. Longmont deserves a great transportation system, and that the youth of our city should be prepared for the future. So when you vote for me on November 2nd, know that you voted for someone who is also committed to change. Thank you.
Thanks, Chiquita. Diane.
I want to return just a minute to the idea of mental health. A lot of people give lip service to the idea that we need to address it, but it is a big topic. It's a complicated problem, but it's something that we need to do. And I'll tell you why. Mental health mostly affects women and children. We could pull out many examples, but Sandy Hook would be one where the mother got left taking care of a mentally ill son, who then killed her and went to an elementary school and killed children. So it's something that, if we're going to go big, let's look at that and let's treat the problem, not the illness. And Erin, thank you. Treating the human instead of the illness was a very elegant way of putting that. I want to talk about the Hyperloop. This is a fifth mode of transportation, I believe. I want to say that it is meant to be paid with private dollars through, that's the way CDOT has decided to handle it. Something that the city has money designated for local transportation, and I believe the Hyperloop will push some of these projects that have been talked about locally. You can see more information at my website, ChristopherLongmontCouncil.com. And I want to say and emphasize that business success brings abundance for everyone, especially to our city in terms of tax dollars and other revenues. So that is paramount also. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you, Diane. And Jeremy.
Again, thanks a lot to LAD and everyone who took time out to be with us tonight. You guys did a great job. I know you had to work through the technical difficulties at first, but great job overcoming those hurdles. The same thing as we need to do here in the city of Longmont. If I'm elected as your next city councilman, one thing you can remember, that I'm for the people, I'm with the people, and I'm by the people. The decisions that's made at city council are not for me to benefit, it's for the whole entire city to benefit. I'm all about empowering the youth. I'm all about bringing the small businesses back to Longmont. As Tim mentioned earlier, 150 years of history. Small businesses have been paramount to the success of Longmont, and as the continued success of Longmont is invested in those businesses. I have recently been endorsed also by the Area Longmont Realtors Association because of my vision on bringing workforce attainable homes and also focusing on the affordable homes. And also the project for the tiny homes for veterans. Everybody needs to take a look at that. That is a great thing for the environment, for the city of Longmont. And if you vote for me on November 2nd, remember, I'm motivated for the change for the entire city of Longmont. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jeremy. And now the three mayoral candidates will give us their closing statements, and it will be Joan, followed by Tim, and Gregory will close the evening. Joan?
Thank you, LAD, for holding this forum. It was very informative. I've been on council for 6 years, and I'm the only candidate that has been endorsed by the Sierra Club because of my work on climate change and our air quality and the environment. I am also working very diligently on working with the leaders of the Our Center Hope Recovery Cafe. We're going to have a meeting by the end of October to bring together the idea of putting all of these services under one, I'm going to call it a campus, not a shelter, and that was the point of getting the $300,000 for mental health. I believe in the STEAM project. I totally endorse it, except for the library part. I think our community, according to Envision Longmont, wants walkable, bikeable neighborhoods. A library is an amenity to our city, and they need to be where people can walk to them and bike to them, and even include a community center where yoga classes can be held, where small meetings can be held, so that people can form neighborhoods and discuss things. and have events. I am constantly going to be working on the railroad if we don't get it within the 2 years, if you elect me as mayor, I'm going to make a motion to sue RTD to get out of it.
Thank you, Jen. Tim?
Yeah, I want to thank LAD and our facilitator, our moderator, Professor. Appreciate that. I appreciate the other candidates here. I didn't comment earlier that there is a Tim Waters for Mayor website, and anybody who wants to check it out would see how I've organized what I think to be not all the issues, but the very pressing issues under two themes: one, reducing our carbon footprint, and number two, recovery from the pandemic. So for those of you who might be interested in learning more about where I stand on the issues, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be just positions on issues. However, they're going to make the difference for Longmont going into the future. Civically engaged Longmont leaders have said to me they believe that we're at a make or break moment in Longmont's history, with opportunities and challenges facing every municipality in the post-pandemic recovery era. They believe the experience and effectiveness of elected leadership will be the difference maker in which cities move out of the cul-de-sacs that we've been circling for the last 20 months,
30 seconds.
and which do not, which move into the post-pandemic era with confidence and competence, and those that remain circling the cul-de-sacs, waiting for something to happen. With one eye on day-to-day operations to get it right for the citizens of Longmont, and one eye on the future, with a vision for Longmont for the next 50 years, I am the best qualified in this race to serve as your next mayor. The way I get to do that is you vote for me when your ballots arrive on October 11th or the day or two before or after. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. And Gregory.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Grimm and staff. You've done a wonderful job. Tim, get your facts straight. On August 11, 2020, Joan Peck voted to repeal the Metro Taxing District, period. I'm an outsider, and I am for housing, Highway 66, and many new ideas to make Longmont grow. Expediting project approval, requiring quarterly reports, change for the better, which means moving some of these city council members out, bringing in Tallis, bringing in Jeremy, Diane. Let's require quarterly reports, change for the better. I'm for infrastructure, stopping government overreach, middle-class housing, bringing our workforce to Longmont. I'd like to say, God bless America, God bless Longmont and our citizens. Vote for Harris for mayor of Longmont. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory. And thank you to all the candidates tonight. That was a really great time. I need to turn it over to the Longmont Dems so they can give some closing statements.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for being with us here tonight. I think we gave everyone a really good collection of questions, and thank you so much for your participation. I just wanted to, there's just a few more things here on longmontdems.org. We have lots of widgets that you can check out, and one of them is going to be what's on my ballot, on my 2021 ballot. I will be updating that as we speak. As I said, your ballots will start arriving after Friday. Our next event, LAD, will be at the Boulder County Farmers Market, Saturday, October 16th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have no November meeting because that's the day after the election. And then we'll have our annual December business meeting Saturday, December 18th. Details are to be kind of worked out because, of course, we're still in pandemic mode, right? And you can find us at longmontdems.org. We are going to take this recording of this wonderful event, and we will post it under our resources widget at longmontdems.org. We'll probably put it up on YouTube as well, make it available to all the people who weren't able to see this presentation tonight. And for all the attendees that did come, and if you know friends that weren't able to make it, please direct them back to the website to look at the recording. And once again, I want to thank Mary Ann Grimm, our amazing moderator. Thank you so much. Don't be surprised if we ask you to do this again and again and again. And so that will be it. So thank you, everybody for coming.